If everybody please get seated, we'll get started. It's 5:30. So this is the call for the regular scheduled meeting in the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission this afternoon, October 11th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, as expected, we've got a big old room full of people here tonight. Thank you all for coming down this evening, and I suspect we're going to be here for a little while. So, my name is Hal Hutchinson. I'm the chair. I'd like to introduce the other commission members. To my second, over to the right, is Jason Gutierrez. He's the vice chair. My farthest to the left is Commissioner Matt Mitchell. To my immediate left is Commissioner Chad Zeal, and to my immediate right is Commissioner Robert Grant. I'd like to also introduce staff. We have the Planning and Zoning Director, Christy Turner. We have Charmaine Reed, the Deputy County Attorney. And at the far end, we have Lori Hall, Planning and Zoning staff. So this commission is an advisory board of the Natrona County Commissioners. Our decisions are subject to approval, conditional approval, denial, or modification by the Board of County Commissioners. For each application on the agenda, and we have one item on the agenda tonight, that's the zoning resolution rewrite. For each application on the agenda, we will hold an official public hearing. So we're going to have a public hearing tonight. The hearings are recorded, and there will be written minutes of the meeting. After the Planning and Zoning Commission holds its public meeting, the Board of County Commissioners will hold another public hearing, and that is scheduled for October 18th, and that will also consider this zoning resolution rewrite. So a little of the ground rules for tonight. Everyone will have an opportunity to address this commission. First, we're going to ask those in favor of the application to come forward. Second, those opposed to the application are invited to come forward. And when the chair recognizes you, please come to the podium and clearly state your name and address before giving your comments. Since there's so many folks in the audience tonight, and we want to get out of here at a reasonable amount of time, we're allotting everyone 3 minutes. 3 minutes tonight. So, another important point. If, when you're prepared to come up and give your comments, if someone before you has given those same comments, we would ask that you refrain. There's no advantage for reinforcing a point that's already been made, so we'd appreciate that. So this is not a forum for public outcry or speaking from the audience. You must be recognized by the chair before addressing this commission. And if a person's conduct is out of order, the chair may give that person a warning. If the person continues to conduct, or if the conduct out of order, if the conduct is extremely out of order, the person may be directed to leave immediately. And I think we have a couple of Natrona County Sheriff's officers in the back. The item on the agenda tonight, as we mentioned, is the Natrona County 2022 zoning resolution rewrite. So with that, Christy, may we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. The Development Department of Natrona County has been working on the rewrite for the 2022 zoning resolution for the past 2 years. The rewrite project began in the beginning of 2020. The Development Department did not anticipate that this process would extend out to 2022, but due to COVID, staffing changes, and the feedback received through this process that the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan was in need of updating, the rewrite project has been an extended project. The current zoning regulations were written in 2000 and have gone through 17 text revisions. The last revision was in September of 2020 to add utility-scale solar energy system regulations. After 20 years and multiple revisions, it was time to review the document and present an updated 2022 zoning resolution. The Development Department hired Logan Simpson to assist with the rewrite. Logan Simpson has a vast experience with zoning resolutions, comprehensive plans, and regional planning throughout multiple regions. Logan Simpson has been a great partner in this project over the last 2 years. The Natrona County 2022 zoning resolution presented before the Commission today is the product of 2 years of community engagement and feedback, steering team direction and input, and review by the Development Department staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Any questions for Christy? If not, we're going to proceed with Logan Simpson. And Melissa, I believe you're on point for your presentation now. So, by the way, we have Logan Simpson represented by Melissa Ruth and Jen Gardner here in the audience tonight.
Is it on? Okay. I do want to also acknowledge the screens aren't on. While we're getting that on, we do also have another member of our team, Mark White from White and Smith LLC, is also on the phone. He's been working with us on this project for the past 2 years, so if anyone has any additional questions for him, let us know and we can turn him on, and he'll be happy to answer any questions as well. There we go. There we go. So I don't have a long presentation tonight. I just wanted to touch back on the process and timeline, go over the public comment that we have received since I was last here in front of you all about a month ago, and then the recommended revisions based off of that public comment, which you have the memo in front of you dated October 5th, and then the one dated October 11th. So this presentation will just focus on the ones that you haven't seen, so from October 6th on, because we did receive about 16 more public comments. So what is the zoning resolution? The zoning resolution is regulations that detail how parcels of land can be used. It's based upon the Natrona County Development Plan, which was most recently amended in 2016, and it supplements the county's subdivision resolution. So the zoning resolution looks at zoning and land uses, building setbacks, parking standards, density intensity, landscaping, application procedures, and building height. Christy touched on this a little bit, but why update the zoning resolution? Specifically to modernize and simplify the language and reflect community best practices and desires. And additionally, to align the code with the 2016 Natrona County Development Plan, to update and clarify definitions for ease of use, to make the right things easy, and to balance flexibility and certainty. Those were kind of the 5 main things that we kept in mind as we worked through this process. Again, it's about a 2-year process from start to finish. We started in earnest in January of 2020 with steering committee meetings, and then we did do a public open house at the beginning and a questionnaire, and then another open house at the end of 2021 with Module 1, and then worked through some more steering committee meetings, some more drafting early 2022, worked with the mountain group for the Casper Mountain Land Use Plan, and then a subgroup of those people to work on the MR1 and 2 zone district standards. And then up until right now, where I was in front of you last month, we did a public open house, and I'm back here in front of you today. As Christy mentioned, we will have the Board of County Commissioners work session next week, and then the hearing for the document on December 6th. This mission statement comes from the 2016 development plan. Another key thing that we kept in mind through this rewrite process, since the zoning resolution does relate back to the 2016 development plan as its guiding document. Natrona County is a unique place to live with abundant natural, cultural, historic, open space, and outdoor opportunities. We cherish community value and quality of life. We understand that the economy of our county is changing, and we recognize our existing economic foundations and the necessity to strengthen and diversify the county's economy. And we wish to preserve and enhance our cultural, historic heritage and our community values while enhancing our quality of life through responsible growth. And enough about the background. So public outreach, what we have done throughout the process, like I said, we held 3 open houses at different points throughout the process, with over 280 open house attendees across those open houses. We did 15 stakeholder interviews with various members of the community. We had an online questionnaire which received over 219 responses. We did 12 steering committee work sessions. And then most recently, we received over 60 public comments on the draft document that you have in front of you tonight. So, based off of those public comments, we have a series of suggested revisions, which is standard. When you have a draft zoning resolution and we put it out to the public, we do expect public comment, and we do expect some revisions. We miss things, things happen. So it's good to see public comment. We are excited that we had enough people who did want to comment on the document. And so these are in addition to the recommendations from the memo dated October 5th. So accessory dwelling units, the recommendation is to move that to the accessory uses section. It's currently at the top of the use table, which makes it look like it's a primary use. We want to pull it down under the accessory uses so it's clear that accessory dwelling unit is an accessory use, not a primary use. And then remove the design standards requiring an ADU to be consistent in appearance with the principal structure. We heard loud and clear from the public that that was not the desire. So in that October 5th memo, there is an attachment, the first attachment, that shows what that strike through of that language looks like. It would be striking the section that says design, new accessory dwelling units and exterior alterations or additions must maintain the architectural design, style, appearance, and character of the primary dwelling unit. We're proposing to strike that line completely. And then accessory uses and buildings. So this is pole barns, garages, shops, any other building that's not the primary structure, usually the residential structure, the main home. There's a couple places where we use the term accessory building and accessory structures. We would like to, we're proposing to combine those two terms and just use the term accessory structure. Remove, again, the reference to design compatibility. So there's language under there that accessory buildings or structures shall be designed aesthetically compatible with the buildings. We'd like to propose to remove that whole section. And then remove the language requiring accessory buildings to be subordinate in size. Again, we heard loud and clear from the public that the requirement that the principal or the accessory dwelling unit not exceed 50% of the floor area of the principal structure was not the desire of the community. So we're proposing to strike that. That is currently 4.0104C size, line 2, that whole first sentence, and the third sentence. And again, this is in the October 5th memo. Those are the two big things that we heard from the public for accessory uses and accessory dwelling units, removing design compatibility standards and removing that maximum size. For, again, accessory uses, so that includes pole barns, detached garages, other barns, shops, greenhouses, any kind of accessory structure that would not be attached to your main home. Firearm ranges is the other section that did receive a lot of comment. If you'll remember from last time, we did have a reference to the U.S. Department of Energy design requirements. We're proposing to remove that and instead allow the applicant to bring in or to submit the reference document that they are using for design criteria at the time of application. So they can provide whatever document they want to provide with the standards to show that they are meeting those specific standards. We are also proposing to remove the locational requirements for indoor gun ranges, so that whole section under location, removing all three of those locational requirements, and removing the requirement for outdoor gun ranges to be located more than 4 miles from incorporated city limits. There were some additional site design things to remove that are covered under your typical range design criteria. So you'll see those also proposed to be struck in that attachment 2 for that memo dated October 5th. The last one that I want to highlight is 3 new definitions, and these have been since this October 5th memo. There was a request to add a definition for buffer, so that draft definition is shown here as an area of natural vegetation or man-made construction that is intended to provide a dimensional separation between dissimilar land uses or protection of sensitive lands. A buffer may secondarily provide a visual screen between land uses. Scenic viewshed was a second one, and that draft definition is a continuous undisturbed area, often terminating in a significant visual landmark such as public open space or parks, mountain ranges or peaks, ridgelines or bodies of water. And the third one is wetland. This is the last definition that we've received public comment on to add, and it reads, those areas that are inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater at a frequency and duration sufficient to support, and that under normal circumstances do support, a prevalence of vegetation typically adapted for life in saturated soil conditions. Those are the 3 definitions, like I said, that we've received since that October 5th memo. There are some additional definitions that we are proposing to add. Wall, hours of operation, and quiet hours, removing the definitions for farm and ranch, primary structure, and primary property. Those were all repetitive definitions. And then revising the definition for manufactured home and modular home to meet the current building code definition of those terms so that you're consistent between the zoning resolution and the building code. And then again, revising the definition for accessory structure and accessory use. Oh, I have one more. So the last one, these were ones that have come in the past couple of days. So fire mitigation requirements, there was a comment to expand those beyond the MR1 and 2 zone districts. That is something that I would say we have not heard generally the public desire to do that. I know that the building department is working on updating the community wildfire protection plan. So that is something that we would say that you would want to look at following the update of that plan. Revising the minimum size for campgrounds. There was a comment to revise the minimum size for a campground in the MR1 and 2 zone district up to from 4 acres to 5 acres. We did recommend that increase from 4 to 5, but it would be for all large-scale campgrounds. Small scale we're recommending that language remain unchanged. And fire pits would be handled through the conditional use permit process, rather than setting a hard standard in the zoning resolution. There was a comment about neighborhood meetings. In the zoning resolution, it states that online meeting format is encouraged. That was the result of the COVID pandemic. We wrote that section during that time. So we're recommending to revise that language to accommodate all property owners and require or have an in-person with a hybrid option. So people who may not be in person or not feel comfortable can still attend. And then there were a couple comments on enforcement and violations regarding specific clarity. Those comments we have sent over to county legal for their review prior to making a recommendation on those specifically. That's my last one. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Logan Simpson?
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, so now's the time that we're going to move into the public meeting part of our meeting here tonight. And, this is a big deal. This zoning rewrite, last I heard, 209 pages, maybe a little more now since last month, but huge document, so there's a lot to be covered. So I'd like to reiterate, those addressing the commission, please clearly state your name and address for the record. And again, we're having a 3-minute time limit so that hopefully we can accommodate everyone here tonight. And when you hit 3 minutes, I've got this little deal here that I'm not going to say 3 minutes. I'm going to hold that up for you, and that means wrap things up quickly, please. All right. So, we ready to go for the public hearing? All right. So, moving into the public hearing for the Natrona County zoning resolution rewrite. At this time, I would like to invite those who would like to speak in favor of the Natrona County 2022 zoning resolution to please come to the podium. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? One last time, anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward. Mr. Lambertson.
3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Lambertson. I live at 2449 Hogadon Road. I've been on the mountain since 1974, full-time. I've run businesses, I've done all kinds of crazy stuff up there, but I'm pretty aware of what's going on here. I was a member of the committee that wrote whatever it was called in 2004, the zoning plan for the mountain. And some of that's based on here. What we're doing today. I'm going to run out of time, but most of my stuff is typo stuff, and maybe I could visit with Melissa later and go through those things. But let me get to a little bit of substance. My property it surrounds a good couple sides of the Hogadon ski area. There's an RC zoning in here that pertains almost specifically to that property and almost specifically to me, which is kind of interesting, but whatever. I'll take it. My property was, a portion of it was zoned commercial in 1994, and I ran a commercial business on it. That zoning has since wiggled around to a number of other things, so whatever has changed. There's no longer a business there. It is interesting that the rules of RC pertain to a city property in a lot of ways, Hogadon. So as soon as we step over from my land to their land, they call the shots. And how those interface, well, we'll see. But generally, I'm not here to ask you to make huge changes. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I know how huge a job this is, and to accommodate everybody is virtually impossible. But we'll start with me, because I'm up here until you hold the sign up. Okay, a few typos. On page 14, MR2, there was discussions of that being possibly a 10-acre instead of a 5-acre. I think it's sticking with a 5-acre minimum lot size, which is really, really where we need to be and where it's been for a long time. But down below it says residential density, 1 primary residential structure per 10 acres and 1 ADU per 10 acres. I think that's a typo, and those need to be 5 if that's the lot size. Think?
I'm going to defer to...
Discussion later?
She's shaking her head yes.
Got to be one or the other. 555. Okay, thank you. Next. I think there were a lot of trigger words in here that maybe got people excited. In the vegetation management fire mitigation on line 16, plant materials should be no taller than 4 inches in the field break. I've got about 70 acres up there, a little more. I've taken care of a lot of grass and weeds and sagebrush. 4 acres ain't gonna cut it. Nobody's producing lawns up on the mountain. And it's just not reasonable. So don't make a rule you can't enforce. And it's like, that needs to be a lot taller. The next paragraph, keep all grasses mowed to a height not to exceed 2 inches. That's within the 70-foot range. Yeah, I got it. So how should I best proceed with the other 25 items that maybe are due for some correction?
Bruce, I'm hearing that your changes are generally typo-type stuff, so you suggested a meeting later with staff to go over those?
Whatever
items?
you think is best. I mean, I think
that's a great idea.
there's some issues that just, it's housekeeping,
Sure.
and it's, just things that come up that will affect all this. And I'm sure you're going to hear a lot from other people, but meet with staff. Should Melissa be part of that? Yes?
Yep.
How long are you in town for?
It'll be virtual, but I'll coordinate with Christy on those.
Okay. So Christy, I'll get a hold of your office soon, and we'll go through, maybe tomorrow, and we can go through this. I know it's time, it needs to be timely. But anyway, thanks for your work. It's a huge job, and I hope it works out for everybody because there's a lot of good in here and a few goof-ups. 2 inches grass. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Just so everyone understands, so this is Planning and Zoning Commission here tonight. In addition, there's the Board of County Commissioners. Board of County Commissioners is set to have a public hearing on this very same thing, very similar to tonight, on October 18th. So next week, there's another public hearing. The county commissioners are set to consider this, depending on what we do tonight, on December 6th. So we still have a couple months before this thing potentially is going to be final. So just letting you know, as Mr. Lamberson said, he had a couple typos and things like that. Yes, there's still time to make some revisions. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
The October 18th meeting is a work session for the Board of County Commissioners, so it will
Okay.
not be a public meeting.
Oh, okay, okay,
But there will be a public hearing
okay,
on this December 6th.
okay. Thank you. Andrew, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Andrew Schneider, 8711 Everett Lane. I've been involved in this process from the get-go, and there's been a ton of opportunities for public input. Aside from some of the open houses, I can't think of a hearing for this zoning resolution that had so many people turn out. So to me, that tells me that having the opportunity for comments going forward is good. But I also just want to encourage that, and I know this may not be a popular opinion in the room tonight, but that because of the amount of money that has been spent on this, because of the time, because of the ample opportunity for people to give comment, that we not try and extend this out into 2023 and summer and just let it go on months and months. I think that we can and we will continue to deliberate over the finer points of zoning. We've been doing that for the last 20 years on the last update. So I just encourage this group to receive the comments here tonight and make good work out of them as you are able to incorporate them in. But let's not extend this out any longer than we absolutely have to at an increased cost of a change order with the consultants and so on. I think we need to move swiftly to close our contract with the consultants, get the zoning adopted, move it forward, and then we can continue to have conversations with folks who can show that there is real economic harm from the change in zonings, and we can back out anything that was unanticipated. But at some point, you just have to hit print and then work with the regulations you have on the books. And if previous experience is any indicator to the future, we will continue to update the zoning piece by piece by piece, year after year. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Schneider? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One last time, anyone in the audience wishing to come forward and speak in favor of the zoning resolution rewrite, please come forward. All right, so seeing no others to come forward in favor, at this time I'd like to invite those who would like to speak in opposition to the Natrona County 2022 zoning rewrite to please come to the podium. Hello.
Good evening. I'm Donna Martinson. My address is 3155 Bella Vista Drive. I would definitely like to rebut what this gentleman just said. I understand that there's been a lot of work that's gone on for 2 years, but just as of October 5th, there are so many corrections that the public didn't like. That tells you there's still a lot of work to be done. And having sold real estate for over 35 years, it's like the covenants were not in anybody's mind. Every subdivision has covenants. So we don't need the county to come in on top of that when people are complying with their covenants and they have their own HOA boards for you to change why people initially purchased the property. I sell many rural properties, and that is probably the first question on their minds. Can we build a shop? Can we build a pole barn? Can we build a purple barn? If the covenants say you can, then you can. I don't think it is your positions or the board of CC to do that either. Not when you're hurting some people's only investment that they have. And as it is, we have to work on, the values. Right now, we're in some crazy times, and we just don't know. So I just wanted to say, as a real estate agent of 35 years with a lot of experience, that I don't think that the county should be intervening, and I think you guys need to table this and do some more work. And if we have to go into 23, so what? You've already spent the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening.
Hello.
My name's Stuart Anderson. I live at 3005 Whitcomb Road. So most of my comments, since I'm only got 3 minutes, will be in the Casper Mountain area. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with either your consultant with zoning or whatever. I don't know if the current emergency management office was involved with this whatsoever. But my 28 years of emergency management is still in my brain, and I'd be more than happy to sit down with them and give what some issues I found. A lot of the, obviously in the MR1 and MR2, when we start talking about fuel breaks, that's a lot different than a fire break, just so everyone knows. Fire breaks are nothing but bare ground, and usually do that when there's a fire. Fuel breaks are, there's some vegetation, but not continual, okay, and trimmed up trees. But one of these, it's talking about, you got a water right next, 3 foot out from your house. Well, a lot of cabins on Casper Mountain, they don't have water. They have cisterns. They have to transport the water, so you're gonna make them bring extra water to do that. So that's something that needs to be looked at. Starts talking about pruning trees to a certain height. Well, right here, prune trees to a minimum height of 10 feet above the ground. If a tree is less than 20 feet tall, prune the tree to half of the total height. I got a bunch of trees this big. So I have to, that are 3 foot, 4 foot, that have come up naturally. So I have to trim half of those up and probably kill them. Because in here it also talks about, health of the wildlife, the people, and the environment. And I don't think that's very healthy for the environment or the wildlife myself. A bunch of other, like I said, a bunch of other paragraphs in here. It's a little ambiguous, at least from what I've read, on whether existing stuff is already grandfathered or whether it's grandfathered and not in compliance with this or that. As far as, the penalty, $750 per day per violation. So is that per tree? That'll get expensive. As well as who is going to enforce that, and I think they talked about that tonight. And the non-compliance as far as dead vegetation, leaves. In my case, I don't have a whole lot of leaves, but got a lot of pine needles, especially after a windstorm. And I thought my wife was kind of nuts when she says, yeah, I like to rake the forest, and she does, she rakes it up. But if someone comes along who's going to enforce this an hour after the windstorm comes through and I got dead needles all over the place, then I'm going to be cited. Or I could be. I didn't say I'm going to be, but I could be. So anyway, there's a lot of issues such as that to go through this. Like I said, in the MR1, MR2, what about properties? You know, the setbacks, that's good. However, if you're close to another property and they don't do anything because they don't have any buildings, what do you do? So, like I said, I got lots more I can comment on. I guess I missed all the others, so I apologize for that. I'd be more than happy to work with whomever on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Hyde.
Thank you, Chairman Hutchinson and members of the commission here. My name is Bob Ide. I live at 3838 Garden Creek Road. I recently ran for the state legislature under the platform of more freedom and less government, so I want to voice my opinion tonight on zoning. You know, just zoning in general, not all the specific myriad of issues on this, but you know, we didn't even have any zoning laws prior to the 20th century in this country. 1904, the first ones were in Los Angeles, then 2016 in New York City, two of the most expensive cities in our country that everybody's moving out of because, there's just so much more regulation and taxation, and that's just a recipe for what we don't want to do. So, I've got a few talking points here. Some of them are strong. I think zoning is theft, pure and simple. Like most government central planning schemes, coercive zoning laws increase the cost of living and are a violation of property rights. They hurt the poorest the most. Zoning takes property rights and gives them to government employees and councils. It's an abuse of the police power rights of state and local governments to exercise authority over privately owned real property. Enforcing a zoning ordinance involves a long-term commitment to a certain level of community spending, which is a burden on the taxpayers and grows government. That's something, I feel strongly about and that we don't want to do here. I'd like to say, lighten it up here a little bit with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. It's one of my favorites that applies to this issue in particular. It says, quote from Thomas Jefferson, "I would rather be exposed to the inconveniences of attending too much liberty than those attending too small a degree of it." Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi. Rosemary Saban, 9460 West Zero Road. I think a lot of elected and appointed people in positions forget that they have an obligation to be helpful and accommodating, not a hindrance and discouraging. I own my own property. I purchased it outright at the age of 32. And I don't like that you guys are telling us what we can and can't do with our property. And in that it says that it's for our health and our benefit and our welfare, and yet no public entity, no person in a position or anything can be held liable if any damage or disaster happens to us personally or anything. That's talking out both sides of the mouth, right? I think that there's a lot of things that need to be redefined. The building permit part of it, it's on page 180. It says that after 2 years, a building permit is expired. I moved an old house. I'm working on an old house. It's going to take a long time. There's a lot of people that want to get off their butts and do something for themselves. And putting a 2-year cap on that and having it worded as such, we have a constitution that's misinterpreted. So it's important that you guys get this right. And then the car part of it, wanting to replace that with a nuisance thing or however that whatever's become up that, there again, that what right to say what people can and can't have on their property. Some people collect these old cars because it's a source of revenue in their later years, and you're limiting that. But having that 2-year building permit thing, you're deciding between somebody having a trailer house or a stick-built house, or hiring a contractor that they possibly can't afford, hiring engineers to have everything engineered because somebody thinks that makes it better, or having a shop versus a pole barn. So that's dictating what people can and can't do with their personal property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition? Good evening.
I'm here by chance, actually. I'm
Name and
Chance
address, please.
Matula.
Name and address, please.
Chance Matula. I'm a pole barn builder in town. I live at 233 Sunflower right now, so I'm in city limits, but, you know, we do a ton of work in the county. And we've had a ton of rebuttal from the county on putting up buildings. And pole barns are the cheapest economical option for a homeowner. There are pole barns that have been put up in the 60s that are still standing today. I think that people are making inappropriate judgments on bad builders. Maybe they're not the greatest looking buildings, but there is a lot of crap that's in the county anyways that is trailer houses and so forth that don't look good either. You know, there's no reason that red iron needs to be the only option or a stick frame. Once you get above 12 foot tall in a stick frame building, you have to move to LSL studs, which is a laminated stud. It's too expensive. The option for a pole barn is the best option for riding arenas and small shops for people who need a $20,000 or $30,000 option with no foundation. You don't have to have concrete in a pole barn, which gives you dry storage. I think you guys should spend more than an hour or two here or there asking people out here and calling these builders who are doing this stuff and really digging into the information on what these buildings are providing. You can do an 8-foot on center pole barn, truss, 4, 2. They can be built as stout as it needs to be. And I don't think that you guys need to be shutting down pole barns in the county. You know, we've done millions of dollars worth of work here for the last 15 years in pole barns. And you guys will, and I know there's lots of contractors that are building these things. And it's inappropriate for you guys to affect the community like that. We don't have a lot of options for making money around here. And you guys going to shut down one of the main streams in our county is ridiculous. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Ken Stubbs, 6820 Chirac. I live on 6738 West Riverside. I've been looking at this house on Chirac for over a year, trying to wait for it to get on the market. And finally it did. I finally obtained it. And my goal is to rejuvenate the property, which has been set idle for 2 years and has been not taken care of for many years, which I have. I've taken care of the yard and made the neighbors around that house happy again. And am currently trying to put a pole barn in the back half of this acreage. And to hear that you guys are going to not allow pole barns for whatever reason, I'm not sure what the clarity is on that. But I have some money, I don't have a lot of money, and the pole barn, this day and age, with material costs, shipping costs, labor costs, everything going up through the ceiling, a pole barn is still not a very cheap venture to go into, but it's the most economic, especially when you're working with a budget that is, which I'm at my maximum on now, which I wanted to be lower than that, and I still can't believe that the option is going to be taken away from us in order to either have a pole barn, because you're talking a great increase on a stick built. You're even a bigger increase on a red iron. And at that point, I am trying to build this property. I'm trying to build all the other properties surrounding it, increasing their value due to what I'm doing on this property, redoing the whole house and everything. And I'm having to weigh things to just make it all happen. But if I have to go with a stick structure, I'm pretty much sunk on doing that. I just don't have that, and to be able to do the house at the same time. So I'd really like you to think hard and long about pole barns, because I've seen plenty of pole barns that are beautifully, nicely done, and there's a lot of people like Chance. I've been talking with him that do wonderful work, and I've seen his work, and it's something that is not an eyesore. I've seen a lot bigger eyesores around the county than, a pole barn with some waves down the side or something of that nature. But you know what? The option needs to remain out there for a pole barn compared to these others, just because of the times are being so tough and so expensive. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gutierrez, you have.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it seems the pole barn subject has come up twice in a row here. Could we have Logan Simpson stand up and address if we are limiting those types of structures? I see we also have the building official in the room too, so maybe we can put the pole barn conversation to ease and maybe save some other comments.
Sure. Understand you had some discussion on that today.
We did. I'm actually gonna. There it is. Yes. Okay. So pole barns are considered an accessory structure, and the comment that we did receive, which again we've heard loud and clear, is to remove the design requirement. That was what would. There was language that says accessory buildings would have to match the character of the primary building, and that was brought to our attention at the open house a couple weeks ago, that would limit pole barns, and so that was the recommendation, was to remove that language so that it would not limit your ability to build a pole barn. There is no other prohibition in the zoning resolution against actually building a pole barn. It was just that line about the design needing to be compatible that would de facto limit it, and that's what we're proposing to remove, and removing the design requirements for accessory dwelling units as well. So you can have, if you wanted to, you could have a stucco home. I don't know why you necessarily would out here, but you could, and then you could have a pole barn or a stick-built ADU. You could do a mountain modern unit and then a rustic unit. You could mix and match, that the county was not interested in regulating to that level. So we've actually pulled back a lot of the language from that So in sum, there isn't language in the zoning resolution currently, and as proposed, that would limit pole barns specifically. That design requirement we're recommending to remove so that you wouldn't have that limitation on either the size of the building or the materials that that building can be built from. And then I'll see if, I don't know if Justin has anything else he wants to add, because the rest of it would come to, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I see Justin in the back, and the impression I'm getting is that you covered it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to add to that, but I would certainly stand for any question if you did have any.
So are they not going to allow pole barn homes anymore?
Oh, no, precisely what she was trying to say is there is absolutely no
So it can
intention.
still be a primary
we're-
structure?
Yeah, there's going to be no changes to the ability to build pole barns in Natrona County.
As a home even?
Yeah, we'll still permit that the same way we do now. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition? Hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Don't mind me, my medicine messes with me, but I felt the need to come here today. Sean O'Brien, P.O. Box 1626, Evansville, Wyoming. But see, that's the number I have to use, but I have a street address, but I don't. Anyway, so, you know, I've got more than one vehicle that don't run, you know, and I want it. I paid for it, I bought it. It's not running right now. And you're gonna tell me I can't have it. You want me to license it, which then I gotta insure it, but then my homeowners won't cover it the other way. So now I gotta put car insurance on a car that's never gonna go on the road at this time. So you just, I mean, I live on disability, you just kill me. I'm done. I can't enjoy the hobby I got because you guys wanna limit my freedoms of what I do on my property. So, I mean, it goes along with pole barn. It's all just the whole thing, it needs to be better written. You know, why I gotta license that vehicle to sit on my property that's not gonna move at this time. But it's gonna move. It's not like a piece of junk on a jack and all that, you know, but you're still saying I can't have it. And then they said that it included trailers. Well, I got 4 or 5 trailers. What, I'm just a lucky guy? I got 4 or 5 trailers here. Before I became disabled, I was always busy doing stuff with them and this and that and the other, and I'm not as much now, but I got 5 acres. I can park them anywhere I want, any way I want, but I can't have them if they're not licensed and registered. But all my trailers are, you know, unless they run out. And the cops always tell me when they pull me, oh, your thing's expired. Oh, okay. You know, because nobody cares about trailer pulling in this county. You know, so I mean, the wording in this thing is wrong about the licensing, because that's just you guys making more money. For what? On me? I already paid tax on it. I own it. It's on my land. It's mine. What I do with it isn't anybody's business but mine. I mean, you know, you say I got to put a tag on it, display it, make sure. Well, you got to find the vehicle first, but they're sitting right out there in my 5 acres, but you drive down, I don't know, maybe it's a half mile down my road, and it's a private road. So what are you doing there anyway? The sheriffs don't even come down there unless they're called. Why? Because it's private. When you leave Cold Creek, you're on private road. What gives anybody the right to come down there and even look? You know, let alone start adding this stuff to it. I mean, I don't know if I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. They've been out there to my place. You can't have this. I put a fence up, put them all behind there, and they were all on the line. So then I took all the material I had there, and I had to do it quick, so I just threw it out. And that's what you see when you come to my house now. Instead of seeing a row of vehicles that I work on, give away, sell, whatever, you get to see all the material. Now you got a thing saying, I can't have that. Why can't I have it? It's all usable material, brick. You know, I got over 5,000 bricks of one color. Just one, you know, for an addition I want to do. Oh, you can't have that. Well, yeah, I can. I mean, or you can come out with your checkbook and just buy me out and I'll leave. That'd be the best thing. What do you think? County can afford it, right? I mean, you just come write me a check, then you can do whatever you want with the land. Because then you'll own it. But right now, I own it. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Corcoran.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission, Christie, everybody. My name is John Cornquin. I live at 1650 South Walnut Street, and I'm just doing a couple changes I'd like to see in your address of the ADU on MR2. My comments will be all on the MR2. You're allowing the ADUs, which I appreciate. Mr. Lamberson noted that it's not congruent with the MR2 zoning. You have a 10-acre minimum, which, of course, MR2 is minimum lot size, 5 acres. Also, you have ADUs are, the definition you have is for occupancy. In order to build an ADU, if I understand right, you have to have your primary residence has to be there. So if I own a property on Casper Mountain, I can't build a secondary unit there, ADU, because I'm not a primary resident, or that's not my primary residence. I believe that to be true. I can look her up for you if you like. But it's, I think anybody, it just would create, if you're going to keep that, it's going to create problems. Once it's sold, that unit's already built, and will the next guy use it as a cabin or a year-round residence? I would suggest that if one person can build an ADU, everybody could do an ADU on their properties. So that'd be on H. 40201H is the occupancy part of it. I think that should be changed so that everybody can do that. I would also like to see, like Mr. Lamberson, I also own property that would be affected by the new RC zoning. And I'd like to see the allowable uses to include accessory dwelling units. They're not that they're not allowed there. In order for somebody to have a business on Casper Mountain, often they want to live in that same area or on the same property. I've been trying to sell a cafe up on there, if anybody wants to buy one. And a lot of people want to live there, but we'd have to have that permission from the county to do such. And so I'd like to have an ability to have a accessory dwelling unit for that, and it's not on that list, or maybe also a single unit attached and detached might be nice on that. If Mr. Lamberson's trying to sell his property to a future business owner, they might want to do the same thing. Possibly Casper Mountain could use a liquor store. Everybody would like to have you allow a lounge and a bar, but not a liquor store. I think that'd be a good feature for Casper Mountain to buy your beer or whatever you want to do instead of coming all the way downtown. Since you're selling it by the glass, I think you could sell it by the 6-pack. Also, I'd like to include all temporary uses. None of them are on the RC as well. And if somebody wanted to do say, glamping with teepees or something like that, or whatever it might be to fix some of the lodging issues that we have on Casper Mountain, that might be another nice item to add to the RC area. I think that's covering most of my items. I appreciate the work you guys have done. I know it's a lot of work. And I too believe that we don't need to be in a rush. We're not in a race here. We're just trying to get things right. And just like the Health Care Act, it's not always good just to pass things and then fix them later. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mr. Corcoran, your comments tonight, were they basically covered in this email you had earlier today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Hello.
My name is Caitlin Dykes. I live at 12605 Ridgeview Road. One of my big concerns is the wireless communication towers. A big part of Coal Creek is rural residential, and we do not have options for anything other than Vista West, Mountain West, whatever it is for internet. There's a lot of us that work from home out there and need that internet for our businesses and for other purposes personally as well. And if there's not communication towers allowed out there that are already out there, that is going to leave a big portion of Coal Creek, BB Brooks, so on and so forth, without the opportunity for internet, because it would be way too expensive for somebody to come in and put hardline internet in out there. So that's what I have.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition here tonight?
My name's Melissa Van Horn, and my address is 8600 East Bull Run. I live on Bull Run off of Coal Creek. We bought out there because we don't like regulations. We live in Wyoming because we don't like regulations. I know I keep hearing that we had opportunities to voice our opinions before. I'm sorry, this is the first time I've heard about it. Out of the people that are on the board, I'm just wondering how many people live in the county that are making the decisions for us. And I do appreciate the changes that you guys have made so far. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I don't know if it's for or against, but I'll give you my spiel, and then you can figure it out, I guess, at
Yes,
the
sir.
end. My name's Thomas Lovelace, and I live at 383 Missouri in Evansville. And I'll just read my spiel, and then you can figure out where I should have went on this. So I'm a member of both the Casper Pistol Club and the Platte River Rifle Club. I have range safety officer's certification from the National Rifle Association. I am the treasurer of the Casper Pistol Club. The indoor range has been in existence for more than 45 years. I am a charter member who helped pour the concrete pads in 1977. During that time, there's never been a complaint about the range. The club is an affiliate of the National Rifle Association. The club carries a $500,000 insurance policy with the Lockton Affinity Insurance Company. It is registered with the IRS and the state of Wyoming as a nonprofit company. The only ammunition that is allowed on the indoor range is up to .45 caliber pistol. The center rifle ammunition is not permitted. Most pistol club members are over 65 years old and have belonged to the club for more than 20 plus years. Many of them are also certified range officers and or safety range officers. The range building is owned by Mr. Clayton Wynn, and he is a staunch supporter of the club and firearm safety. Mr. John DiOrio lives next door to the range. He is the closest neighbor, and he has never had any complaints about the range or the folks that are there. The Platte River Rifle Range has been certified by the National Rifle Association to be in compliance with national standards. There is also ammunition calibers that are limited out there, and I know that you folks went through that here a couple of years ago. And the members are certified NRA range officers or safety range officers. There have been upgrades over the last few years to ensure all safety standards have been met. The original distance location requirements for both ranges would effectively eliminate their use for both of those ranges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lovelace. Mr. Corrigan?
Hello. Good evening. I am Mike Corrigan. I live at 7459 East Geary Dome Road. And I'm glad you clarified the pole barns because I got a couple. Not positive on the accessory buildings, how that's going to affect it out at where we're at. Because if you're only going to allow one, I'm past that now. So, and I'm only halfway through the 208 pages. I have a little trouble with my eyes, and it's hard to read that small print, but I'm getting there. I have not got the part yet that said there's a limitation on trailers. Is there a limitation on trailers?
So Christie or Melissa, can you answer Mr. Corrigan's question?
Not travel trailers. I have 2 horse trailers. I have 3 flatbeds. I have a gravel trailer, and I have another flatbed, and then I have a couple pickup bed trailers. All but 3.
And where are you at?
Coal Creek.
Are you off on Geary Dome?
We're back behind, off of Geary Dome.
You can have 4.
Unlicensed.
Unlicensed.
Currently. How many is it going to go to?
We're hoping that a new rule will go in where they can be screened from public view.
We get
And you can have as many as you want.
We have 110 mile an hour winds out there. I don't think we're going to be doing much screening. Our tree lines are leaning over because of the winds we have out there. First 5 years, we put 3 roofs on our house. Screening is probably not an option. But let's relook at the trailers. Did someone get a hold of the NRA? The last time I was here, she couldn't get a hold of the NRA, and I'm just curious if she found them.
We were able to locate the range document,
Okay.
but we removed the criteria from the zoning regulation. So now, if you want to open a new range, you'll go through the site plan process and bring the standard that you're going to build your range to, and that's where that discussion will happen. So if you want to bring me the NRA standard, bring me your NRA standard.
Will that be susceptible to board interpretation as to what's legal and what's not?
Mr. Chairman, it would need to be a approved standard like the NRA standard.
Okay. And then I'm going to urge you all fervently. We've already lost, or we have 2 county commissioners that were not reelected in the primary. There's a potential of losing 2 more in the general. Don't know if it'll happen. Nobody knows politics. And I follow it very closely. I would ask all of you to please think about tabling this until 2023. That would give everybody here a lot more time and give me time to finish reading another 104 pages and have an idea what I'm actually talking about. And I think that'll do. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition, would you please come forward this evening? Hello, Mr. Lubin.
Hello. Mr. Chairman, may it please the board, my name is William C. Lubin. I live at 4075 Monument Road in Natrona County. Excuse me, a week ago I did present a very extensive document, if you will, of comments to your planning office. I had discussions with both Ms. Turner and the county attorney. Those were very well taken. My comments were well taken, and I think a lot of my comments, as far as I can tell, have been assimilated into the proposed revisions that's before you to consider. My concern really is one of process and kind of where we're at. There's a lot of comments being made tonight, potential of typographical errors being corrected. If those are corrected without the public knowing what they are and having a chance to comment on those changes, as well as the fact that the revisions that are being considered have not been assimilated into a final resolution at this point. So it's hard to comment on what the final resolution is going to be until all these comments come together. I'm not opposed to what you're doing. I understand zoning very well. I was the city attorney for 16 years here in Casper, and before that I represented the Planning and Zoning Commission in Casper for 4 years. I do understand the zoning process, and I understand what it takes to put this and to implement these kind of changes. However, cost should never be an element of good legislation. And I appreciate the time and effort that's gone into this, but you've received a lot of comments tonight. I think a lot of positive changes have been made to this potential legislation, but I think there's some other things that need to be addressed. Some of the things I worry about are still the inclusion of some vague terms in what the document may be in the end. We have terms like customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use. I understand that the idea is to take the pole barn restrictions out, but are those just to become a garage for housing vehicles, or can a retiree still have a shop and do woodworking? I think these are things you need to consider, because all these things will affect property values in the future. And my prime concern when I got into this, when you read it, was the prohibition for pole barns, and I've lived in my house for over 24 years, finally have my family raised, and hope to build myself a shop building. But it'd be bigger than the 50% footprint that was in there. That was my motivation for coming forward. The other secondary motivation was the restrictions on firearm ranges. I've been a lifetime competitive rifle shooter. I want safe ranges built, but the regulations being proposed actually would have worked negatively towards a culture of shooting in the state of Wyoming. And I think those changes have been made in a very positive way, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I need to tell you that staff has been very accommodating in taking my comments. My comments were 9 pages and single-spaced. And with that, I still couldn't address all the issues in 208 pages of a document. And perhaps I should have been in this sooner. I got the postcard early September. I had family issues. I did not know this process was going on, to be quite frank and honest with you. I think my suggestion would be that you do consider tabling this. You've had a lot of comments here tonight. Individuals want to make more comments to make changes. If you try to pass this without the public having the opportunity to address those changes and really look at those, I think that's a mistake. And I present this in good faith because I think it's important that you get this right. And if you over-legislate, I think you're going to have issues. One of the things I will add, I just happened to notice the Exhibit A for your nuisance violations and standards. I didn't really get to see those until Friday. And these changes, thank you. I'll be real quick. I think you're going into areas that's really handled by the Department of Environmental Quality. You're going to maybe end up in trying to regulate farms and ranches on runoff of pesticides, herbicides, cattle feed yards and such. And I think those things need to be reviewed and considered before you enact them. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lubin. Good evening.
Hi, how are you doing? Bruce Coates, 5454 Coates Road, Field Creek Ranch, Casper, Wyoming. One of the things, I've been watching this process, trying to read through everything that you guys have been putting in here. One of the things that's really kind of sticking in my craw, and I haven't really got to read through it, is you're trying to adopt all these federal regulations as to how to punish people. I mean, everything about this is how we're going to punish him. We're going to punish him for his trailer. We're going to punish him for not screening and hiding my balers, hiding my stackers. We've got to get a little more in depth into this. Right now, I think everybody's getting the feeling that they're being punished through this process, instead of trying to give the people in the county the freedom to have their property. So that's my only suggestion I have on that right now is too much of how we're going to punish everybody. So that's all I have. Thanks, Hal.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Good evening, Ms. Bergeron.
Good evening, Chairman and Council. I have some comments. My name's Linda Bergeron, 2355 South Larkspur. First of all, I would like to suggest that the Amendment A for the Natrona County nuisance standards be omitted. I think they have another place, and I don't think the place is in the zoning resolution. I had also requested notification as far as the plaques, and I did notice that notifying the 20 people in the area had been admitted, and I'm concerned about that for bigger issues, maybe not for just a residential type thing, but when there's a big development, I think the public needs to be notified, especially those that live in the immediate area. So I'd like to see that put back in. There's some language, and I just didn't have time to go back in and find it, but it occurs a few times in the document where it says according to federal, state, and local regulations, and whichever is the most stringent. And to me, I might be reading it wrong, but to me, it's talking about current regulations, where this document might be passed in 2022, it will live for 10, 20 more years, maybe without being revised. And those current regulations will change. And so my concern is that we limit that language to specify this time and date. The reason is, if you look at federal regulations right now, they are totally out of hand, and they are becoming more and more and more stringent and infringing upon just our lives in every aspect. So I can't speak to it specifically at this time, but that needs to be addressed, I believe. And the wildlands, I don't know if it's firefighting or what, but those regulations also tend to limit where people can actually abide in certain areas. And so I'm very concerned that we pin down that wording, and also that we're accepting that document from Colorado in the wildlands. I noticed that in the Casper Mountain zoning regulations, MR1 and MR2, it makes reference to the wildlands. So I think that we need to be careful where we're going with adopting that, because it could limit people, and we don't want to do that. So those are my comments currently, and thank you for your time and work on this, especially for the good improvements. I think that you have listened, and I do appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. I am Kurt Simpson. I live at 9695 Osage. And the only comment I have is that I've been listening to all these people, and I tried to read through it. I didn't get that far. I believe I did. I'm sorry I missed the open house. I did believe I did fill out the online questionnaire. But from what I'm seeing, it looks to me like 208 pages. Are you kidding me? It sounds like way too much restriction, whether I've read it or not. Don't we need to tone it down a little bit? We are in Wyoming. It doesn't take that much just to be able to live on your property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is Kathy Ide. I live at 3838 Garden Creek Road. I'm a realtor here in town, and I know that there are several other realtors in the room, and I think that they could probably vouch for what I've seen or observed in our community, and that is the fact of a large, quite an increased number of out-of-staters that are moving to Wyoming because their perception is that Wyoming is wide open, it's free. And I mean, the reason they're coming here is they're fleeing from oppressive government telling them what to do in every aspect of their lives in, these other states like California, Oregon, Washington, etc. So it seems to me like we're going backwards. I would rather see that we scrap all these suggested additional regulations, go back to where we were, or the one that is existing right now, and start working on reducing what we currently have and make Wyoming more free. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition this evening? Mr. Lamont, good evening.
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. I've tried to reduce mine down here a bunch on it. I'm going to ask, because I couldn't find the answers. And Christy was very helpful on an impromptu call I made to her. I called her after quitting time. I left a message last Thursday. She got me rolling at 8 o'clock Friday morning. So she's very prompt. And the people that I've worked with Logan Simpson, have been really good too on it. I'm just going to put a couple of things into perspective and help wrap up. But I'm a proponent of, I think we need to take a little bit more time rather than trying to rush this thing through on it based upon the response tonight of people coming out. Looking back and just some criticism, I think we should have had some other public sessions like this a little bit more in depth rather than the open houses. I found the open houses were basically kind of useless on it, and I don't mean not to criticize, but I don't think they served a real good purpose as compared to the past. But I'm going to talk a little bit about MR1 and MR2 and for the mountain area and having the history of all of the land plan meetings, including the ones that Bruce was involved in years ago in 2004 and going back into the 80s, I think it was, on them. So, but they both are designed for protect for low distance, protect low density on it to where we don't overbuild on the parcels, be it the 5 or the 10 acre, depending upon what they're in, 1 or 2. But the big one, or the big two was for slope protection. But most importantly, the one that I haven't heard come up tonight, and I don't think the fire department's even been involved, and Stuart nailed it right on the head, that the emergency services people weren't probably involved in this. He couldn't speak for him with his replacement, but I don't think they have been. But that's for fire safety protection. And when we start talking about commercial campgrounds, both small and large, and allowing a fire pit per site pad, we're going the wrong way on fire protection safety. And I'm not a real, advocate against private campgrounds up there on it. You may be confused on that when we talked about that before, but I think a communal fire pit makes sense if you're going to allow campgrounds. That's one per campground, not one per fire, per pad. I don't know, enough for campgrounds, but I'm going to ask the rest of these in the form of questions here on it, and then I'm going to offer my time to Christie to come down, sit down with her on some other typos and so forth that I've found, and she's communicating those, of course, to Logan Simpson, and it's just a matter of trying to clean it up, and some of those were brought up tonight.
So,
Okay.
You're already at time.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. On it, I do have one last question of you guys. Do 8x20s or 8x40 sea containers require an engineered foundation, or are they considered an accessory building? I didn't see anything on sea containers, and I didn't see anything on pole buildings. And we've talked about that, but I'm hard of hearing, and I sat in the back tonight, and I was having a tough time. But are we going to get pole barn language into the document, and are we going to get sea containers defined on it? Are they an accessory building? I'd like an answer on that tonight.
Don't know if we can answer that tonight, Tracy, but we'll certainly get back with you on that.
How did we end up with so many sea containers and an MR1 and MR2 if they exceeded 120 square feet? We've been down that path once before, but that needs to be defined on them. So, but I think we need some more of these sessions, and we need to, I'll do it manually like Bill Lubin did. He did an outstanding job of documenting his concerns, but don't rush this thing through. Otherwise, I got a feeling the commissioners are going to boot it right back to you, and we're going to be back in this room again. So thanks, Hal.
Thank you. Anyone else? One last time. Anyone else wish to come up and address the commission on speaking in opposition? Hello, sir.
Hi there. David Mowry, live at 3565 Micro Road. Some of the stuff that I've seen in this is kind of just been thrown at. Some of our concerns of what timelines are and everything else. We went through a pandemic. Are we going to really count that? Wheels of justice, government goes slow for a reason, because we don't want to implement something that's going to screw everything up. I've seen many contracts that have been written and verbiage gets put in there. It's not what you guys intend, but what about the 3, 4, 5 boards after you? Look at that, and it's in black and white, and they say, here it is, black and white. That's, I think, a lot of the concern out here. The stuff that everybody's seeing, that it says, well, we don't intend to do that. But it's not what you intend now, it's what will people interpret 5 years from now. I think that's the biggest concern that everybody's been seeing here. I can tell you, some of the stuff that I've seen, the county isn't even abiding by the rules and regulations that you are putting in place here. So if the county's not abiding by this, how do you expect the residents to do that? And then we're putting in fines for residents. Everything in here is 100% plausible. It can be done. But at what cost? How much does it cost to be able to take and remodify my yard, to be able to mow my grass down to 2 inches, to put in shrubbery? Wait, the shrubbery that they recommend that we put in next to our house doesn't even survive in Wyoming. This stuff has been written for areas like California and such. So I think that needs to be looked at and reevaluated. And again, like many other people, I think that this board needs to table this, come back. It may take another year or so, but let's put something in that's actually accurate rather than just something that we have at this point in time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bowery. Anyone else? One last time. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please come forward. All right. I now declare the public meeting closed and I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts with us this evening. I made a short list of things that I'd heard, and we have folks from Logan Simpson, and we have staff that have been taking meticulous notes, I'm sure, as we've been doing this, but we heard there were typos that we need to address. There are issues up on the mountain that need further clarification. A lot of information on pole barns and accessory dwelling units. Unlicensed vehicles and screening issues, gun ranges. Heard quite a bit about personal freedoms and how governmental regulations are affecting folks. Heard public notifications needed to be expanded or at least preserved. Heard loud and clear that we need to extend the consideration period for the process here tonight. And then last but not least, there were a couple folks that brought up emergency services protection. So thank you all for the heartfelt presentations you made here this evening. It takes a lot of guts to get up there and talk in front of all these people. So, Planning and Zoning Commission. What do you guys think? Further discussion?
Well, as a county resident, I feel that if that CCAN question couldn't be answered, there's a lot to do yet, because about every third place out there has a CCAN currently.
They're currently permitted as a shed, a structure.
So most of them are all over 120 square feet?
Correct.
They should all have permitted?
Correct.
And then the foundation question about that. I've read a lot of this, I haven't read it word for word, but a lot of that's not covered as a foundation for this.
Does it say that?
I couldn't find anything for a foundation.
We don't require a foundation.
There's an Justin to answer that.
Hey, you
Mr.
all,
Smith.
I can give you a qualified, it depends. It really does depend. Basically, the code has evolved to allow sea containers to be utilized as building materials. And so you'll notice the Starbucks, it's here on Center Street. It's actually built out of sea containers. There's a training facility that Peak Rescue has out on South Magnolia that's built out of sea containers. And so depending on how you're intending to use the sea container, will basically determine what level of foundation it would need. So we've got a lot of sea containers that are simply used as storage and they're temporary, so there's no foundation, they're not tied to the ground. In a more permanent application, the minimum would be to simply anchor them to the ground. And in other cases where they're planning to be utilized in more of an occupied fashion or something that's a little bit more substantial, then we do in fact, have a more formal foundation poured under them.
I couldn't see anywhere in here, granted, I haven't read it all, but when it seems like when it directed towards accessory building, it was leaning towards like a mother-in-law home or accessory. But then I couldn't see where it addressed it as a barn for like livestock and so on and so forth. Are we gonna be limited on numbers of buildings we can have under the new zoning?
Mr. Chairman, there's an accessory dwelling unit, which would be the mother-in-law style. Then there's an accessory structure, which would be your pole barn, garage, shop, etc.
Are we gonna be limited on how many of those we can have?
No, there's no limit on how many you can have. The proposed revision in this last memo eliminates any of those size requirements.
Okay. Mr. Gutierrez, look like you have a question.
I too live in the county and I'm proud to live in the county, and I work hard at having a, what I believe is a clean, organized place. As we got into this process, it was really about updating the old zoning resolution, the 20-year-old zoning resolution, and I think we did accomplish that. We took care of, there was a lot of problems in the 2000 zoning resolution. However, along the path, we have picked up some things that I think we could spend some time on. The vehicles is one that hits me pretty hard, that we need to look at allowing at least to the same level that we used to allow, where it was, you were not a nuisance in RAM or urban ag if you had four unlicensed ones, and you didn't have to screen those. I think it's real easy in the county. We have a small ag operation, and we end up with some vehicles and some trailers, and there's things that we only occasionally use that don't justify licensing them and insuring them. So there's a number of things here that were unintended that seem to have risen to the top. The mountain stuff, there's some lots up there that don't have rocks smaller than 2 inches. So to mow it would be pretty impractical. So, you know, some of those, the intention was that we were trying to have some firewise and to protect those residents so that when there is a fire up there, we don't have loss of property, but we definitely don't want loss of lives. So that, there were some unintended things that have shaken out, and I don't know, I guess I lean to the chairman and staff on how, what it would be the process to get, what does our timeline look like, and what would be the process to correct some of those things before it moves forward, and what tools do we have available as planning and zoning?
Thank you, Jason. Mr. Mitchell.
I would just echo what Jason was saying, but it'd be nice to get a clean document, because I kind of read through the original ones, and then you've got revisions, and then there's things that have been proposed, and so, you know, I'm not even sure where we're going now at this point. I think it'd be nice to just a clean document that has all the revisions that we can look through, because it's hard for me to kind of look through everything and figure out what's been changed and what's been updated, and that's, and, you know, I think we're kind of a citizens board here. We're trying to do what the citizens, you know, want in this process, and I would just wonder, you know, Jason has experience on this, is how do you go forward with this that kind of makes the best utilization of people's time and tries to get the input of the people that are here, and you know, that's one of my thoughts. How do we get everybody's opinions into a document that does the most good for the county? And you know, I think Jason was on the committee, and maybe you have some thoughts on how to maybe do this. But I do think it may be worth it taking a little bit more time to kind of sort some of this stuff out, because I get the feeling we're kind of on the back end of really kind of understanding what everything, what else going on.
And Jason, you want?
Mr. Chair, with regards to amendments in our current zoning resolution under Chapter 10, there's zone map and text amendments, and under Section 1, it has the process for zone map amendments. And in that section, at the close of a hearing, this commission can recommend approval, recommend denial, or table the proposed amendments. However, in Section 2, under text amendments, it says that following the hearing, the commission shall prepare and forward a recommendation to the board. And so for a text amendment, tabling is not an option.
So I understand our options tonight are do pass or do not pass.
That's accurate.
Okay.
And I guess with one exception, with recommendations, like as amended, however you would like to amend it.
Okay.
I think something that might need to fall under the vehicles is four-wheelers and UTVs. Or create an ag exemption for some of that stuff.
As far as licensing, is that what you're talking about? Okay. Okay. All right. So are we ready for moving ahead? So with the information we have from the attorney's office, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend due pass of the zoning rewrite dated September 1st, 2022.
Do or do not.
I'll entertain a motion to recommend due pass, D-O pass. That means affirmative. We'll go with what we have, subject to the information that we can address from this evening, typos, vehicle licensing, emergency services, unlicensed vehicles, screening. And I think, as I understand, gun ranges in your presentation earlier has been addressed already, correct? You know, I think we hear you loud and clear on personal freedoms. It's a tough one. Public notification, is that public notification based on changes to Wyoming state statutes recently? I understand there were some changes. Ms. Bergeron brought up that making notifications to folks in the vicinity of an issue before the Planning and Zoning Commission would no longer have the notification requirement.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that the required notification is a public notice in the paper, and that our inclusion of anything beyond that is policy for the county.
And I do understand Wyoming state statutes perhaps address that here just in the last year or two. So things are changing all the time. As far as extending the consideration period, I guess that would effectively be a tabling, and as we're hearing from the attorney's office tonight, that's not an option for us this evening. And then last but not least, I know we had a number of quite a few organizations and governmental agencies, Casper Mountain Fire District, Natrona County Fire District, but Mr. Anderson brought up emergency services protection, and maybe some of those issues need better polished. So, thank you for that. So the chair would entertain a motion to do pass based on what we just went over. The zoning rewrite dated September 1st, 2022.
I would like to propose that we pass this with the recommendation of the typos addressed. I'm sorry. Recommending the typos be addressed.
Oh, yeah, you're going to need to.
I would like to pass with the recommendation of the typos addressed, the vehicle, number of vehicles licensing, the emergency services part, the public notices, paper only. And that's basically what you had on your notes there.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Zeal, second. Any discussion?
Pardon?
Any further discussion before we vote?
What would be the process to see that those additions got addressed?
I believe that'd be a question for staff.
So this recommendation will go to the Board of County Commissioners with your items and your recommendations for their review.
So I have a question related to that. This October 18th, I'm assuming that's BOCC That's Board of County Commissioners meeting,
The work session,
the work session.
yes.
Okay, and this will be on the work session,
That's my
correct?
understanding, yes.
Okay. And that's only a week away. So, back to Mr. Mitchell's concern, how do we find that what's been adjusted this evening fits us?
Mr. Chair, my understanding was that staff was going to try and incorporate the changes so there was one document, not this patchwork. And I don't know what the timeline is to get that to the commissioners. I think Logan Simpson's the one to ask.
Thank you, Chair, Commission. The intent is following, you're right, it is only a week away, and it's Tuesday. The intent is following that Board of County Commissioners work session, any additional comments that they have in addition to the things that you've said. So if there's other minor things they want to make, we'll take those comments and then turn that into the red line draft so that for their December 6th meeting, they will have a working red line of everything that we've proposed, because we want to make sure that we're incorporating their comments as well following this meeting. So the typos, the definitions, all that stuff will come through with the Board of County Commission on December 6th. That being said, the draft that is currently out will stay out. We want to make sure that the document that people are seeing is not changing, we're not getting rid of things. So that will be available for the Board of County Commission on that December 6th meeting, prior to that, as it would normally be.
Have you heard anything this evening that gives you concern to have adjustments made in time for the two scheduled meetings?
For the December 6th meeting, no. Obviously, I can't turn around a significant amount of comments by next week, and we want to make sure that we get the boards incorporated too, or if there's anything that they disagree with, that we get that feedback as well before making those proposed changes. Otherwise, I have not heard anything tonight, and I'll look to staff to see if they have a different opinion, that we couldn't incorporate by then, by that December 6th, especially because I've got most of the comments from people in writing. It's easy for me to make those changes. Doesn't take, so. Looks like staff.
Jason?
So just to clarify, we believe it's possible to incorporate the comments that we received this evening. The Board of County Commissioners also may have additional comments that they would propose next week. All of those comments would then be together. The public could see those comments online and come forward at the December 6th hearing with the BOCC, and they would be in fact, decision makers at that point, whether to adopt or not to adopt this. And would they have the option to table it at that point?
There's nothing saying that they can't.
Is that a hypothetical question? If we didn't pass it, then you said we could make recommendations to the process. I just would feel more comfortable not seeing a clean copy, so I know kind of what I'm voting for.
And
because all this stuff is just kind of gone through, and it almost seems like we're it almost seems like we're just kind of forwarding this kind of on faith that everything's going to be kind of done. And so I was wondering if we didn't pass it, and if we could get a clean document that we could then vote on. I mean, is that, if you don't pass it, does it just go away and then you have to start all over? Or is there a way to do something with that?
Mr. Chair, if this board doesn't want to recommend approval of this document, your vote would be to recommend do not pass, and it would still go forward to the county commissioners.
Just like any other thing we did.
I'm still confused. So are we only voting on right now the what Hal listed to be put in, to be cleaned up and put into the zoning rules?
My understanding, it's.
That's the way I
the
take
things
it.
that I listed as amendments to
Right.
the 208, 209-page document that Logan Simpson has prepared, the most current, September 1st, 2022.
So we're voting on those revisions. We ain't voting to go ahead and proceed to pass this down the road.
We're voting as the Board of, the Natrona County Planning and Zoning Commission to say we approve of the 208-page document that Logan Simpson has prepared dated September 1st, 2022, including the amendments that I
Okay.
spoke of earlier.
I follow you.
Correct? All right.
And just for clarification, can I hear those amendments again?
All right. So typos to address. I have here issues on the mountain, and I recall. And Bruce was primarily typos, I recall. What else was there on the mountain?
The 2-inch grass conversation
And-
and the
and the-
irrigated
So that
plants.
kind of rolled into the emergency management with the
Oh.
trees and the $75 per tree, or, how does the fine process work with that emergency management? So pole barns and accessory dwelling units, it's my understanding that today that's been worked out. So there's language that we have not seen yet that will be prepared, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that is in the memo dated October 6th, that you would motion to accept those changes from that memo.
Okay. That we address the issue of unlicensed vehicles and screening. And there was the issue of the number of unlicensed vehicles, the number of unlicensed trailers, and where screening fit into that discussion.
Okay.
My understanding is gun ranges is taken care of. Okay? But is there a memo on that one as well?
With the adoption of that October 6th memo.
Okay. Public notification was a question. And I would suspect that Natrona County is interested in doing at least the minimum that the state statutes require. But leave that up to the commissioners for anything more than that.
Is the debate more or less than 20, if that 20 is in there?
Mr. Chairman, the proposal was to take the 20 out. If you wish to propose to put the 20 back in, that can be added into your motion.
What is 20?
The 20, so that any notification for any item coming to the Planning and Zoning Commission would then be notified by, at minimum, 20 people surrounding that property or use. And that could extend beyond 5 miles, 10 miles. And so it's proposed right now that it was removed. We can propose to put it back in under your motion.
So what do you guys think? Put it in?
Well, I think,
I would offer that as a friendly amendment, that
Include it?
to include it, that we'd be at least 20 people.
Okay.
well, I think it should be miles, so many miles.
All right, so moving ahead. So we'll assume that it's included, and the commissioners can do with it as they wish. The further amendment details are emergency services protection to essentially verify that the necessary emergency services agencies have been consulted and that they are sufficiently represented in the text. Okay?
I had one other note on the, Mr. Chairman, the wireless communications, is that
Good point.
allowed in
Good point, good point.
other zoning districts?
Good, thank you.
Melissa?
You guys are deflecting on something you don't even understand yourself.
Exactly, you ain't even read it.
Thank you very much.
You don't get it, and you're voting on it.
Melissa, would you please come forward and talk to us about the cellular, please?
Thank you, Chair, Commission. I'm actually going to defer the cellular wireless communication facility to Mark White, as he is more up to date with the federal standards. So go ahead and push that on. Mark, go ahead. The question is regarding if wireless communication facilities were disallowed in a certain zone district, if I understand correctly.
Yes. The speaker who mentioned this was concerned that she might not be able to get wireless service where she lived. I don't know where that is or what zoning district that is, but looking at the use table, this is table 4.01.02-2, and it's page 68. We've got two types of towers. The bigger ones are class 1, and the smaller ones are 2, and that's why those are permitted by right in more districts. If we wanted to, there's several things we could do. One thing we could do is to simply allow wireless facilities as a by right use, the 2, that category 2 in all the districts where they're not allowed. So we would allow them in MR1, MR2, RR1, RR2, SR1, SR2, and MH. And we could allow the taller ones as conditional, which means they would require a public review in RR1, RR2, SR1, SR2, and MH. If we wanted to do that, if we want to make sure that just every square inch of the county could be covered by, a tower under our zoning regulations. And it's without doing a study, we don't know. It's possible that they could just from the districts where they're currently allowed. So that's one option. And the other one, and these aren't mutually exclusive, we could do the other one as well, is to say if you're in a district where they're not allowed, maybe a residential district or an MR1 or 2, or 1 or 2, SR1 or 2, if they're not allowed, we could allow them by right if the applicant demonstrates that there would otherwise be a gap in service. And I recommend, it's been a while since my head was in those regulations, those were done a while back, they're very technical, but that's probably a good thing to have in there anyway, just to make sure we don't run into that situation. And I would say the same pattern with the class 1. If they're not allowed, we could say, we'll either allow them by right or as a conditional use if otherwise there would be a gap in service. So those are a couple of options we could incorporate. And again, we could also, I think if we do number 1, we probably don't need number 2 because we now allow wireless everywhere in the county. We should definitely, I would say, do 2.
Thank you, Mark. So, my take on what we heard is a lot of technical information that I'm not sure I can absorb right here. But I think as a general notion, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are the board interested in people throughout the county having wireless access. Correct me if I'm wrong. So whatever Logan Simpson has to do, option 1 or 2, to make that work, we're in favor of it. And I would add that to my list of amendments that would be necessary for consideration of the zoning rewrite tonight. Okay? Mr. Zeal.
I had one other question, not to do with the cellular service, but the building permits you pointed out in the new rules will only be good for 2 years. It used to be as long as you showed progress in a 6-month time frame. So I think that would be one to keep in there, as long as you're showing some progress from time to time on a building permit.
Kind of going out on a leg here, and I wish we have Justin here if we wanted an official answer, but I don't, the intention wasn't to eliminate or to cancel somebody's building permit.
So I can't speak to the 2-year limit. It was my understanding that that might not be staying in the draft. But to Commissioner Zeal's question, yes, the building code does state that basically a permit is good for 180 days, but as you're making progress, that clock continues to reset. And so we are in the practice of granting extensions for building permits. I think there was I wasn't there when the original draft was being written where the 2-year maximum was coming into play. I think we all know that if you're building on the mountain, it's a 2-year project. So that kind of goes without saying. I can say, though, that we do have some building permits that have been open for 5+ years and things of that nature. And that becomes tedious for staff, and because it's difficult to track from one software to the next software and things of that nature. So we try to balance the practicality of making sure people's projects are successful and not just willy-nilly close permits. We try to accommodate the people that are actually working on projects. On the other hand, if we've got something that's dead, then, well, that's maybe a permit that needs to go away. Is that helpful?
As long as it shows progress.
Exactly, exactly.
Any further discussion for the question?
So before you call the question, so to get a clean copy to look at, we would see it sometime after the BOCC work session, maybe a week or give some time, and then that would be posted and we'd be able to digest that prior to the December 6th Board of County Commissioner hearing. And everybody is encouraged and welcome to attend the BOCC hearing and voice any concerns there.
Hit the date again.
On December 6th, Tuesday, December 6th, 5:30, the same room.
So
Thank
Melissa,
you,
do
Mr.
you want
Chairman.
to address that? So sometime after, going back to that schedule thing, so we've got the work session coming up next week. How long after that, assuming we've got a minor amount of input from the BOCC, when do you think we might have the document ready to review on our own again?
I can't give a solid date as to if it's going to, what that date is going to be. But Chris, we will work diligently with staff, county legal, to make sure that we incorporate all of the suggestions, all the things from your motion, as well as any additional comments from the board, and we'll get that draft out as soon as possible. What we can do is as soon as we know what that's going to look like and start to work with staff on how we want to address those things, looking at this emergency services, the making sure you get all the typos, we can let you all know as soon as when that is going to be available. But I want to see what those comments from the BOCC look like before I give a hard and fast date.
Will that show up on the website?
Yes. So as soon as we have information, we'll send an email to you all and we can put it out on the website that this is when the new or the revised red line will be available. It will be a red line version, so you'll be able to see the track changes just like in your memo, with blue and red and green and all sorts of really fun colors. But then you'll be able to track and make sure that we didn't miss anything. So as soon as we know that date, and again, we'll work with staff to make sure that we can cross our T's and dot our I's before we put that back out to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of forwarding a due pass recommendation to the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners for the Natrona County zoning resolution rewrite dated September 1st, 2022, subject to the amendments that we've discussed here this evening, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay? So we have, I'm sorry?
I'm opposed.
So I, okay, all in favor? All opposed? So we have 3-2. Do pass. All right, next, the chair will entertain a motion to amend the zoning rewrite to add the nuisance appendix. So we'll need a motion and a second for that as well.
Can that nuisance thing be read?
The question was, can the nuisance thing be read? It's quite lengthy, I seem to recall.
I'm sorry, would you like to read it now? Is that?
How lengthy is it?
Chairman, it's 5 pages.
That's too much.
Let's fight and vote on it.
All right, well, the chair will entertain a motion to amend the zoning rewrite to add the nuisance appendix. There's no way around it. There's a lot of information here. 208 pages, nuisance appendix, and so, chair will entertain a motion.
I'd entertain a motion subject to an amendment on the vehicles to be in line with our current zoning resolution on the number of vehicles. Also striking the operable portion of that nuisance deal. We've never, seems impractical to go out and ask somebody to demonstrate to me that this vehicle is operable or not.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Moved by Mr. Gutierrez, second by Mr. Grant. Any further discussion?
So does this amendment apply to the current? Does this amendment apply to the current zoning, or will it apply to the one that's being forwarded up?
Charmaine, I believe that's your question.
The new one.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the zoning rewrite adding the nuisance appendix, subject to the amendments stated by Mr. Gutierrez, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, we had 3-2. Next, the chair will entertain a motion to amend the zoning rewrite to incorporate the revisions in the draft zoning resolution memo, Addendum 3, public comments dated October 5th, 2022, which includes Attachment 1, accessory buildings and uses proposed revisions. And that's according to the draft of October 5th, 2022. Would you like me to read it again?
Like to give me a, wasn't that incorporated in the first motion?
Mr. Chair, I think the way you worded it, it was
Okay, so we can strike the need for that.
correct, and I think everything else is covered.
Okay, all right. So now that these additions and revisions have been incorporated, is there any further discussion? I think we've done it, haven't we? Okay. All right. So with that done, I guess we move into the next part of the meeting, which is public comment. The podium is open for any and all.
I'm
Mark Van Horn, and I live at 8160 Bull Run, and I just want to know, have you guys all read this? I mean, seriously, have you read it? 218 pages, have you all read it? Then how come you guys had so many questions about it? I mean, you did, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' time. I appreciate it, all the effort you put into it. But guys, you just can't pass stuff. And I know you just did, but you can't pass stuff that you're not comfortable with everything that's in it. That's what Congress does. That's why we're so screwed up right now. They throw shit in there that's hidden, sorry about my language, that nobody reads, and then that comes in and gets the people. And you guys are trying to do the best job you can. We understand that. But you see what we're saying, right? You guys got to read this stuff. If you don't, someday something that you passed is going to affect you in a way that you don't like it. You understand that? I mean, guys, please read through this. If you haven't, go read it again, because it's affecting people way different than you think it is. I don't know what, bottom line, it's about money, you know, and that's what it is. It's bottom line, it's about money, being able to control us, fine us, do whatever that they need to do. This is Wyoming. This isn't California. We don't need all these rules. I mean, people live in the country so they can do what they want to do, not to have the government putting their thumbs on them, saying, okay, you can have the, we never own our property because the way they set our taxes up. You pay taxes every time you buy a car. How stupid is that? How many times are we going to do that? We allowed that through stuff like this. How many times are we going to do this to the people to keep taking the money? I mean, it's ridiculous, but thank you for your time, gentlemen. Please read the documents and make sure you're well informed on it.
Thank you, Mr. Van Horn.
Mr. Chair, just a point of order. The public comment is a time when citizens may bring forth items that were not on the agenda.
Thank you.
I worked in the oil field for 10 years. I had a CDL. I was a crane operator. I believe in accountability and having a spine. I didn't see that here tonight. A bunch of walk-behinders. You had the option of voting no, and it still would have passed on to the commissioners. You're supposed to represent us, so you didn't listen to a damn thing we said, and you showed us exactly what you're made of.
Anyone else for public comment?
Debbie Bean, 2340 Felspar, Casper Mountain. I heard you mention the C-can storage units for the mountain. I didn't hear anything about regulations for venting so that they don't blow up, cause a fire on Casper Mountain. How are they going to be regulated? What can you put in them and what can't you put in them? I think that's really important. Something you might want to look into. Thank you.
Ms. Bean. Anyone else?
My name is Condo Edwards, and I live at 3870 Squaw Creek Road. Heard all the complaints about C-cans. I've also dealt with Jason on some other stuff when I built my shop. And I built my home. Now you guys are telling me I can't do this, I can't do that. So in the process of building my home, I had issues with Jason over bringing city compliance to county rules. You guys are doing the same thing right now, and you didn't take time to think about what you guys just did. Yes, it can move forward, and yes, it can get declined. But I don't think you guys know the full effect of what you guys just did. I know you can't table it, but you could have denied it. there was a lot of things that went wrong here that I saw, and I don't come to these very often, and there's a reason for that. Because I don't like all the politics. I love Wyoming. I live in the country for a reason, to stay away from all the bullnarchy that happens out there. And I'm hearing all kinds of complaints. I can't even build another pole barn if I wanted to with these new rules that are now getting changed, which I can now, which is good. But what I don't understand is some of the city rules are now getting implemented to county, and it's all on the zoning process. Why is that happening? We're not in the city, we're in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hello, Mr. Schneider.
Good evening. Andrew Schneider, 8711 Everett Lane. I just wanted to thank you all for your service. I think tonight proves that no good deed goes unpunished. And take the opportunity to invite you all up to Muddy Mountain on Saturday at noon, where the Casper Mountain Snow Gypsies are going to be dedicating the safety shelter to our dear departed Phil Santasteven. And that is a community-wide event, noon, Muddy Mountain, safety shelter dedication for Phil Santasteven. Love to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. All right, anyone else? So, call the meeting, well, I should ask. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Robert? Matt, all in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned, 7:47 PM. Well, that was a lot of fun. Have you tried reading that? That's like putting you to sleep. Shit.
Good night.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to have a written document. I just want to know what it all, it's like gut feeling of mine, like you're voting to pass something that we're not, making changes to. But I can understand the process too, we want to have this 3-hour meeting. I just all over it. Come up with more stuff, but they're very loud. But you were giving let's have a couple more work here. I didn't see you back there. Thanks for your work on everyone. I think it's interesting to see next Tuesday's meeting. I think we need to see a lot of these things done and all get
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in the response. It seems like it could be incorporated.
It seems like emergency services, she's not going to be able to speak to that until she actually says something. But everything else.
Yeah.
One of the things that on this public notification